If pundits are getting into your head, then you shouldn't be playing for the club. I've mentioned the system because I've not liked certain things that I've said. For instance, Mason Mount playing left wing back. That can't happen. Changing the back three all the time. That two in midfield means that Bruno's got to play in midfield. I don't like that aspect of it. Excuse mentality, shortcuts, blaming other people. It's the worst thing that you can do that in life.
We've had plenty of conversations here on United People's TV about the media's impact on Manchester United. You can kind of pretend that it doesn't have an impact, but it does have an impact. Something that Ruben Amorim spoke about and something which Gary Neville's responded to in his latest podcast. I want to run through the comments that he made because I think part of what he said is bang on. But part of what he said, I think, ignores a few things. And I want to get your opinions on this in the comments. Like, do you think Gary Neville is fair to sort of hit back in the way that he did with his comments? Now, if you haven't seen them, go and listen to the full podcast, all right? The link's in the description. But I'm going to run through some of these comments, all right? This is what Gary Neville had to say when he was asked about the pundits' impact and whether that actually affects the players. He said, if pundits are getting into your head, then you shouldn't be playing for Manchester United. Do people not remember Alan Hansen criticising us when we broke in as young kids, saying that you can't win anything with kids? That was the greatest centre-back of all time at that moment, talking about us as if we were, inferior and nowhere near good enough. Did they not think that we got criticised during our football careers? I'm sorry, you're playing for Manchester United. It comes with the territory. You've got to step up. They've been hopeless in the system. If it's not the system, then the players are a problem, the manager's a problem, the whole thing's a problem. If you're losing football matches to the level that they've been doing. I never blamed anybody else when we lost football matches, and I played in a dressing room. When you lost football matches, you came in and said sorry. There was accountability. Why would you blame other people? I've not got any time for excuse mentality, shortcuts, blaming other people. It's the worst thing that you can do. I think they just need to concentrate on doing their jobs, doing it well, and winning football matches. The only thing that's going to shut anybody up is winning football matches, and they've not done that anywhere near enough. Now, I want you to let me know what you think about this in the comments. First things first, for anybody maybe who's too young to remember, this Alan Hansen comment is very famous back in 95 when I think United sold, who was it? Was it Ince, Kanchelskis? Who else did we sell? Someone else, I think. And we brought through the class of 92. And this is what happened on Match of the Day.
United were scarcely recognisable from the team we've known over the last couple of seasons. What's going on, do you feel?
I think they've got problems. I wouldn't say they've got major problems. Obviously, 3 players have departed. The trick is always buy when you're strong. So he needs to buy players. You can't win anything with kids. You look at that line at Manchester United today, and Aston Villa at 2:15 when they get the team sheet, it's just going to give them a lift, and it'll happen every time he plays the kids. He's got to buy players, as simple as that.
That's Alan Hansen speaking on Match of the Day, and that's what Gary Neville was going at. Now, I think Gary Neville's spot on in saying that nobody should be using others as an excuse for your own problems. I think that's a pretty decent thing to do in life. Like, if there's any issues, look towards yourself rather than looking elsewhere. But I really think that Gary just sort of ignores some very, very obvious things, right? And it's a bit like, some people say that, I'll bring Roy Keane into that dressing room. And I'm like, are you kidding me? How much of a bomb that would be. What worked then won't work now. The dressing room that Gary Neville was involved in is not the dressing room now. Social media didn't exist back in 1995, right? When it came to ignoring what Alan Hansen said, you just had to turn the TV off. You don't have to look at your phone because that's your bloody phone that existed in 1995. No social media existed. And I think that's what Gary Neville really sort of overlooks here. It's not a case of Amorim saying that we're using this as an excuse as to why we're not playing well. Amorim is simply pointing out that everything that's being said about them and said about United, it gets into the players' heads because of the exposure to those voices that they get. It's why this platform exists. And it's why I would largely always, I won't ignore stories, but I will always take a more positive angle naturally. Because I know that, I'm not saying that any United player watches what I do, because I don't think they do. But even if these players want to step away from it, their friend will send them a ping on WhatsApp. And this is this is something that players these days have access to that players those days didn't. That's why players earn more money. That's why players have got bigger brands. They have got bigger exposure and the benefits that come with them. And at the same time, the negatives that come with them as well, because they're on their phones permanently. And that's something I just think that Gary Neville really overlooks in saying this, right? Basically saying, oh, back in my day, we were criticised as well. Yeah, but it was Alan Hansen, it was on Match of the Day. You could just shut yourself off from it quite easily because you could be insular in that society, and society has changed. So I think it's a bit of a big oversight from Gary. I think it kind of ignores that part. But to go down here in the part that I absolutely agree with, right? It does come with the territory. It is Manchester United, and Gary knows that. But the scrutiny is 10 times higher as a consequence of being Manchester United. And this bit down here, like, I don't like when you have problems in life, like, you need to have self-awareness of your own involvement in those problems. And so many of these players, it's internal Manchester United's problems. Like, we have been hopeless in the system, but do I think that we'd be that much better in a back four system? Maybe, maybe not, but I don't particularly think we would. I think so many of the problems that Manchester United players have are upstairs. But I did this video like 6 months ago on sort of like the uncomfortable truth around Manchester United's legends and the impact that they do have, because they won it all. Scholes, one of the best central midfielders that will ever play for our football club. Roy Keane, in my opinion, the best captain that we will ever have. And Gary Neville, I've done a video defending how good Gary Neville was because you got Micah Richards and Whoppers trying to suggest that he was better than him. So I really respect all of these players and what they've done for our football club. But I just think it's kind of like, if Gary Neville's talking about the self-awareness that these players need to have and about the like internalizing problems and making sure that you fix it, then surely he's got to have the self-awareness that his voice carries power. And his voice carries so much more power now than Alan Hansen's did back in 1995 because of the exposure that exists. Because players can't switch off from it. Because players will get sent in left, right and centre, even if they are trying to switch off from it. Ahmad had a little bit of a social media blackout, but friends were probably still sending him stuff. You can't get away from it. And that's just something that is just completely changed in society now, completely changed with the fact that everyone's got a mini computer in their hand. I just think it's while I agree with part of what he's saying there, I think it's just ignoring the fact that what existed in the 90s does not exist now. Society has changed, culture has changed, social media has changed everything. And when it comes to former pundits, former players and punditry, the impact of their words are bigger and greater and longer lasting than the impact that the likes of Alan Hansen's were back in 1995. So while I agree with part of what Gary Neville said, and mainly that part of like the concept of excuse mentality, just like look towards yourself, lads. You know full well you're not doing enough on that pitch. Ruben Amorim is there defending you as a manager and saying, look, what's being said in the press is not helping, because it isn't. And that's correct and true. But you're not doing enough. You showed against Sunderland that you can be better than you have been. Go and do it at Anfield. Go and do it against Brighton. Go and do it against Spurs, Forest. But at the same time, the pundits and their voices are so much more powerful than they were. I just think Gary overlooks that. I don't really know why. You can let me know what you think in the comments.